and therefore the BE of 1415 is right.
All right, Mr. Chidambaram, let's now come to some of the momentous political developments that have happened both today and will be happening hereafter
no more
as we
questions
go.
on the budget except the estimates.
Because I think this was a controversial issue that was in the news and it needed to be clarified.
Many other controversies are there, but maybe you missed them.
But you're finance minister who's done many other interviews on the budget. I don't need to go through all of that old territory with you. I want to now talk to you as a politician about the momentous political events of the day as well as those that will happen between now and the next election. Today, the Rajya Sabha has passed the Telangana bill. But it's happened amongst din and confusion. It's happened amongst disturbing visuals, not just in the Rajya Sabha but in the Lok Sabha, of violence and disruption. As a senior politician, are you depressed that something as important as this had to happen in this shoddy manner?
Of course. All of us are depressed. In fact, I'm ashamed that this is the way Parliament has transacted business. But then, the alternative is even more undemocratic. If 12 members of Parliament can paralyze a house of 542 people and not allow a single piece of business to go forward, that's the most undemocratic act that you can think of.
Except
Therefore, pushing through a bill in din and bustle is much better than having 12 people paralyze Parliament for 3 weeks.
Except that you were undertaking a very far-reaching change to the constitution and structure of India, the creation of a new state.
It's not a structure of the constitution. The constitution has not been touched. We have created states in the past. We are creating one more
But not
state.
in this manner ever.
But then times have changed. Have you ever come across 12 members of...
But then...
Let me complete my sentence. Have you ever come across, in any earlier parliament, 12 members obstructing a 542-member house, when clearly in the house there is majority support for the bill?
I accept the point you're making, but the corollary or the opposite view is that this has ended up making a mockery, not just of parliamentary process, but also of our constitution. This situation, as you say, has filled you with shame. Was there no better way?
There's no better way. The better way is to sit back and allow Parliament to be paralyzed. Is that more democratic? Is that
Why
better?
not take longer so that you have more consensus? What's the need to rush it through, except for the fact that you want to win votes in Telangana?
I reject that argument. It was not rushed through. This announcement was made on the 9th of December 2009. We are now 4.5 years down the road.
Until the summer of last year, your party did nothing about it.
Again, you're not allowing me to complete an answer. We have had all-party meetings. We've had the Sri Krishna Commission. They gave a very well-argued report. We've had discussions on the Commission's report. We've had emissaries asking both sides to sit down and find a way. Mr. Kiran Reddy was sworn in as Chief Minister with a specific mandate that he must try to find a way to bring the both sides together. Yet, after 4.5 years, if they take irreconcilable positions, someday or other, the decision has to be implemented.
In fact, then the corollary to what you're saying, and maybe it's even the obvious conclusion, is that people will say that there is something rotten at the very center of the Indian system, which means that even when you try for 3 years, you end up doing it amidst violence, you end up mocking the constitution and parliamentary procedure, and therefore the Indian system itself has something rotten at its core because it doesn't seem to function properly.
You're probably right.
You accept that?
I said you're probably right.
And I'll tell you why people come to that conclusion, because the din and confusion and violence in Parliament was also being reflected over the last few days with even worse scenes from the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly and embarrassing scenes from the UP Assembly. Is there something wrong with the way parliaments and legislatures function, or with the attitude and behavior of our MPs and MLAs?
I said you're probably right. I can't defend their conduct. I can't defend what's happening in our parliament and legislatures. I started by saying I feel very mortified by what's happening.
But in fact, you're doing something more. You're actually suggesting not just a deep sense of anguish, but also a deep sense of helplessness. We just don't know what to do to put things right.
Sitting in my place, what would you do? We sit there, we try to talk to them before the session starts for the day, We try to talk to them at the end of the session. We talk to them throughout the day. But if people simply won't accept minimum behavior that is required in a parliamentary democracy, what do you do?
Two quick questions. Are the wrong sort of people being chosen as MLAs and MPs, people who, without consideration, without care and concern, act violently?
I don't want to take names, but there are some very well-known names who were what you would call the right sort of people, the right education, the right background,
and then become the wrong
the
sort.
right credentials, but their behavior is no different from the so-called wrong sort of people. What is right sort and what is wrong sort? All those images have been destroyed in the last few years.
The second corollary question, do our speakers need to be tougher? Do they need to enforce discipline at the cost of suspending? Are our speakers, and I'm not again taking names, because I refer to speakers in legislative assemblies and parliament, are they too soft and gentle? Are they too scared to be tough?
The speaker only reflects the House. There are legislatures where the opposition is thrown out in the first half hour and business is transacted peacefully. I don't want to name legislatures. But in this parliament and in previous parliaments, the members have not agreed to vest that kind of power with the speaker or the chairman.
Should they now decide to do that? Is that something they should consider?
I think at some point of time it may become inevitable to vest more powers with the speaker and the chairman. I hope not, but if it becomes inevitable, for the sake of parliamentary democracy, for the sake of a functioning legislative assembly and parliament, we may have to vest more powers with the speaker and the chairman to act without regard for what appears to be the overwhelming opinion of the House as far as maintaining discipline is concerned.
Now, the second big political development today was the decision of the Supreme Court to stay the Jayalalitha government's decision to remit the sentences of Rajiv Gandhi's assassins. How confident are you as a lawyer, not just as a minister, but as a leading lawyer, that the stay granted today will be confirmed into a final order in March?
I don't know the answer to that. I can't predict what the court will do. But I have said before, and I say it again, that the basis of that judgment is not correct. The legal basis of the judgment which said that delay alone is sufficient to allow a petition.
Except the judgment was inordinate delay alone, not just minor delay, but inordinate delay.
See, you have to, it only puts it on delay. Inordinate delay, but world over, death row prisoners remain on the death row for 20 years, 25 years. It's not easy to execute a death sentence.
And if world over, remaining on death row for 20 years doesn't lead to commutation of the death sentence, then you're arguing as a lawyer, it ought not to necessarily lead to it in India either.
On that ground alone.
On that ground alone.
If there are other grounds, surely the death sentence can be commuted.
Now,
just a moment. In fact, if you put it only on delay, then the perverse conclusion would be people will be executed immediately after the sentence is pronounced without even a reasonable opportunity to put forth a mercy.
That I fully understand. In fact, you're actually now encouraging executives to execute immediately without waiting for time or pause or concern. But in fact, today's decision by the Supreme Court had nothing to do with the judgment you're referring to, although I'm happy to talk about it. Today's decision was simply on the fact that procedures weren't followed by Jayalalitha in remitting the sentence. Are you confident that stay will be extended?
No, that is a question of law. I think the issue turns around interpreting a particular section of the Criminal Procedure Code, which defines appropriate government. I think there is a rival point of view. Which is the appropriate government in this case? The Tamil Nadu government has taken the view that the Tamil Nadu government is the appropriate government. The central government is taking the view that it is the central government which is the appropriate government. Prima facie, it appears to me that the line taken by the central government may be the right line.
Now, yesterday in your interviews, that is to say Wednesday, when you were asked about the Supreme Court decision to commute the death sentences to life imprisonment, your words were, "I am not unhappy with it."
No, you're quoting me wrongly. What I said was, it's not a question of being happy or unhappy. I'm neither happy nor unhappy. All I know is there is a Supreme Court judgment, but I said the basis of the judgment is wrong.
Except that you didn't criticize specifically the Supreme Court's decision to commute those death sentences, and it turned out that you were a lone voice in your party. Rahul Gandhi and several others have been sharply critical.
I criticized the judgment more than anyone else. Please remember, I was the Home Minister.
But that judgment happened 15-20 days earlier. I'm talking about the interpretation of that judgment to specifically
No, that
commute.
judgment came 3 days ago.
No, that was a 15-day earlier judgment in January, whereby the Supreme Court decided that inordinate delay would lead to commutation. I'm talking about the application of that judgment
I said
to
so.
Rajiv Gandhi.
I said so. I said the principle was laid down in earlier judgments. This judgment followed the earlier principle. I said the basis of the judgments is wrong. Mere delay or delay alone cannot lead to the conclusion that the sentence must be commuted. That is my position. Now, remember, I was the Home Minister who had to submit the mercy petition to the President. It had been recalled because it had been lying there in the President's office for many years. I recommended that the mercy petition be rejected because this was a case of a terrorist act. The President accepted government's recommendation and rejected the mercy petition. It is against that the case was filed in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court overturned the government's judgment. Therefore, very clearly, we are very clear in our mind that this is the rarest of rare cases.
Let me put it like this. Yesterday, when you said you were neither happy nor unhappy
with the judgment,
which actually
because it's a judgment,
which supports my initial question that you're not unhappy with it. Well, people came to the conclusion.
I won't let you quibble with words, nor will I answer your quibbles. I said...
But you haven't let me finish the question.
No, I've understood your question.
No, but you don't know it. No, I'm not. I'm actually asking you a different thing. I'm saying people came to the conclusion that you've taken this view with one eye on Tamil public opinion. Your constituency, Shivaganga, is in Tamil Nadu. You were a bit concerned that were you to take a different standpoint, you might endanger your own electoral prospects.
Complete rubbish. Complete rubbish. In the last election, in the earlier election, the Sri Lankan issue, the killing of Sri Rajiv Gandhi, the trial, the punishment, the mercy petition for Nalini, all these were issues in the 2009 election. There were issues in 2004 election. The Congress party's consistent stand is this was a terrorist act, these were the rarest of rare cases, and the guilty, if found guilty, must suffer the maximum punishment.
Finally, let's